Content warning. This video is not made for kids. It contains fictional depictions of mental illness, fictional violence, and fictional abuse. The fictional characters in this story are heavily afflicted by the things that I have spelled out to you, and some of the inner monologue seems to suggest that they should be getting hurt like this, but that is absolutely not the case. Me portraying this abuse or mental illness is meant to show the audience how the illness or abuse feels inside of the mind of the afflicted person, so they can sympathize and maybe stop themselves from following a similar pattern in the future. Be careful if you're easily triggered. You're most likely about to enter the mind of someone who is heavily afflicted by illness and abuse. Viewer discretion is advised.
Chica was getting a little suspicious about this game of laser tag. The rattling of the vest against her feathery shell was making quite a racket, one that nearly drowned out the thumping of her footsteps. She was no longer breathing hard, having found enough time to slow down and cool off, every second that passed making her more and more certain that the game was rigged. At the beginning, Chica had been running around completely expecting to lose spectacularly. She wasn't exactly meant for speed, and couldn't remember the last time she had to fulfill a request made by a kid to put on the animatronic-sized vest and play with them in the arena. Chica's physical purpose was baking, and Roxy's was to literally rule this neon-colored land. And yet, right now, Chica was winning 37-6. They were in the game mode where the goal points were ignored, the object of the game being to hit the other player with more shots than they hit you. The first few times Chica and Roxy had exchanged shots, she thought that she was just getting lucky, and maybe Roxy was a little bit out of practice after being cooped up in her room waiting for a new face. But 37-6 was just a little too unbelievable. Chica heard a giggle and stopped, whirling around. The laser gun she held was built several sizes larger just for the animatronics, the neon highlights of it showing off bright oranges and pinks as if it wasn't already obvious that she was not a normal player. At the end of the corridor, a pink-tipped tail swished out of view, slow enough that Chica began to grin to herself. Chica was not in any danger of losing at the moment, so any competitiveness was overruled by her urge to test her theory. Chica decided to go after her, passing up several intersections, the neon outlines of the walls flashing past her. The afterimage of Roxy's glowing markings streaked across her left side. Chica skidded to a stop, wrenching back around the corner. Roxy shrieked and, rather uncharacteristically, decided to turn and flee instead of fight. Chica barreled after her, laughing as she exchanged shots with her, taking note that all of Roxy's were wild misses. Roxy was able to easily pivot around the next corner, but Chica slid a little, bumping against the wall, having to almost come to a complete stop before accelerating again. Still, despite the fact that Chica was clearly not built for chases like this, she was keeping up. Even when her breathing got heavier and she slowed her pace, Roxy seemed to be slowing down as well. When Roxy glanced over her shoulder to make sure that she was still keeping up, Chica stopped entirely, her suspicions rising further when Roxy pretended to grow tired as well. Chica started giggling, dragging a hand down her face, calling to her, "Oh my gosh, are you throwing the match?" Roxy's head and ears snapped up as one, briefly forgetting that she was supposed to be out of breath. What? What are you talking about?" "You're smiling! I can see you smiling!" Chica accused, trotting up to meet her. "Come on, I am the slowest robot in this place, and I'm winning almost 40-0. Roxy wrinkled up her nose, shifting from foot to foot. I slept on my leg weird. Maybe you're just getting really good." Roxy's nose and mouth was wrinkling up in the cute way it always does when she gets caught, her tail taking on the familiar husky-like curl. "You don't have to throw the match for me," Chica reassured her. "I'm not that fragile." "But Chica..." Roxy seemed to drop the act of a sigh. "I don't want to just start dancing circles around you." "I'm not going to feel bad," Chica said, already knowing what she was worried about. "It's just a game of laser tag. You're not going to break my heart just because I lose one match." Roxy still seemed hesitant. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, go all out." Chica bumped shoulders with her encouragingly. "I want to see what you can really do." Roxy seemed to chew on it for a little bit longer, but she eventually shrugged and said, "Okay, fine, but I'm going to give you a 10-second head start." "What?" 9, 8, 7... Roxy began to count down, a grin growing on her face. Chica squealed with glee. Hey, I wasn't ready! As she turned and bolted away as fast as she could manage. She turned the first corner that she came across, picking another and another, left and right, then left and left again, instantly becoming lost in the identical black corridors. The whole time, Roxy's countdown echoed behind her, giving her fair warning as the clock ticked from 3 more seconds, then 2, then 1. When Roxy stopped speaking, Chica struggled to muffle her manic giggles, a rush overcoming her as she slipped back into the mindset of the game of chase. The action was so different from what Chica was used to, and a part of her loved it. She was always on her feet in the kitchen, but it was never demanded of her to race through a labyrinth of galaxy lights and scan left and right for a virtually invisible huntress that prowled ever closer with each passing second. It was actually quite exhilarating, even though Chica was fully aware that any moment now she would be ambushed. It's been so long since she had gotten to do this, to even spend time with her girlfriend at all. The animatronics' idea of a date was a bit different from a human's. They only really had access to the mall, anything outside of its walls off limits. And even though the animatronics were currently confined to the main lobby, Chica wouldn't have wanted to visit any other place in the Pizzaplex. There were several rapid footsteps, but rather than being behind her like she expected, they were from somewhere in front of her. Chica skidded to a sloppy stop, panting as she angled her blaster forward, finding nothing ahead of her. She was standing in a hall with many different options on the left and right, but the reassurance of that was cancelled out by the fact that Chica could no longer hear any footsteps. She reasoned in her head that that must mean that Roxy was staying in one place, but that was immediately disproven when she heard more footsteps approaching from the left, down a hall adjacent to her. Chica squawked in surprise and put on a burst of speed, flopping into a corner and scrambling down a separate hallway. She was quite certain now that she was only hearing the footsteps Roxy wanted her to hear, because with no audio hint that she had passed her up, the steps were back to being in front of her, making Chica nearly fall over herself trying to stop in time. There were many more halls splitting off from this part of the maze, some of them built up only to her waist and others supporting rectangular viewing holes. This only made her feel even more vulnerable, her chest pounding as she spun around, still wielding the blaster, trying to find out where Roxy could possibly be. The pinks and oranges of her vest flashed a bright red with a blaring alarm, signifying that she had been hit. Chica let out a combination of squeals and giggles as she scrambled to get out of the way, still unable to see where Roxy was hiding. It flashed several more times, no matter which way she tried to escape. She tried hiding around corners and ducking beneath obstacles and even lying flat on the ground, but Roxy still seemed to find an angle to shoot her despite her best efforts to get away. "Oh my god, how are you doing that?" Chica cried, poking her head through a viewing space to take another look around and find her girlfriend. She sucked in her breath when she saw the tip of Roxy's ears around a corner, holding her blaster at the ready as she began to sneak her way towards her. Well, sneak was a strong word. Chica was clunking around the different obstacles with the grace of DJ getting caught in the backstage electrical wires, making far too much noise to ever match what Roxy was pulling off. When she finally turned the corner, she found herself firing at nothing. What? Just as she was about to follow where Roxy must have gone, there was a quiet boo just behind her ear. She screamed, firing several wild shots behind her as she bolted down the hallway, her vest flashing red countless times before she finally got out of the line of fire. Roxy was clearly suppressing her laughter as well, charging after her without bothering to be stealthy anymore. "Roxy!" Chica squealed, trying unsuccessfully to hide behind a barrier. "Wait! Ah!" Roxy came at her from the other side, close enough that Chica was finally able to get a few shots off. Roxy was laughing manically now, scrambling after her as Chica tried to flee the other way. Roxy seemed to phase around each of Chica's shots, pressing herself against the wall, slinking to the floor, sliding between barriers, all in one flowing, coordinated dance. "Okay, now you're just showing off," Chica said, falling to her knees and accepting her fate as Roxy closed in and pounced. With any other two animatronics, a collision like this might have been dangerous, but Roxy was a lot thinner and lighter than Chica, meaning that Chica only gave a light oof as Roxy landed on top of her. Roxy swung her blaster around and pointed it directly at Chica's chest, right where her heart would be if she were a human. But she didn't pull the trigger yet, hovering nose to nose with Chica. Being this close to her, having Roxy's entire weight pressing down on Chica's body, made excitement sizzle through her feathers, the temperature seeming to rise far beyond what had built up during all that running. Roxy, too, seemed all riled up in the adrenaline, a smug grin written all over her face like she was waiting for Chica to admit defeat. Chica gave a dramatic sigh, rolling her eyes and saying, "Okay, maybe that was a little unfair." Seeming satisfied, Roxy leaned back a little, no longer threatening to shoot her again, her expression shifting slightly. "See? It's not as fun when I win all the time." "Whoa!" Chica blinked. "Who are you, and what have you done with Roxy?" Roxy seemed a little embarrassed, her ears flopping back as she said, "Well, I was thinking about what Brianna said, and yeah." Right on cue, all the neon lights in the maze flashed orange and pink, dinging match bells playing over the loudspeaker. Chica the Chicken wins! Tough luck, Roxanne the Fox. Please exit through the main entrance and place equipment back on the respective racks. Do not leave any personal belongings or waste in the arena. Fazbear Entertainment is not responsible for accidents caused by items left in the arena between matches. Hope to see you again soon, recruits! Chica checked the scoreboard on her blaster's tiny screen and chuckled when she saw that, yes, she had in fact won against Roxy, exactly 42-41. "You did that on purpose," Chica accused, trying to hide her appreciation. "So what if I did?" Roxy said, holstering her blaster. She got off of Chica, holding out an arm to help pull her back to her feet. "Well, thank you for letting me win, Annie," Chica said, giving Roxy a peck on the cheek. Chica watched in adoration as a giddy smile melted over Roxy's snout just before she tried to flatten it out and keep her cool. It was always so cute how Roxy seemed to cherish each little kiss like it was their first. It probably felt a lot better now that Roxy wasn't hiding open wounds beneath her paint. A flicker of guilt darkened Chica's mood. How did she not notice? She tried to stay afloat, not wanting to ruin this experience with self-loathing. She made herself remember how closely their feelings of each other's conditions mirrored each other. Roxy felt just as guilty that she hadn't noticed Chica's bulimia, and Chica didn't blame Roxy for it. She had to remember to feel the same about Roxy's self-harm. Both of them had been actively preventing the other from knowing, and had been kept apart from each other due to Jeremy's new rule about not visiting each other's attractions, meaning that they were even farther out of reach. Lingering on the guilt of not noticing each other's conditions wouldn't help either of them move on. It would only make Roxy feel bad that she had opened up, and that was the last thing that Chica wanted. Simply repeating that rationalization to herself was easy, but getting herself to accept it was a little more difficult. Chica just tried to think of the next stage of the date instead, not wanting to ruin the mood. Roxy walked her to the exit of the laser tag arena, since Chica's sense of direction was completely useless in a labyrinth as extensive as this. Brianna and Paisley had been chatting on a bench outside while waiting for them to finish their match, cutting their conversation short and getting up once they saw the two of them emerging. "Hey, did everything go well?" Brianna asked. "Yep, she's ready for lunch," Roxy replied, squeezing Chica's hand. There was a slight pause in the conversation as she felt everyone watching her intently. She pointedly kept her breaths even, trying to smile so they wouldn't worry. "Yeah, you said you had a surprise?" "Mm-hmm." Roxy nodded, taking the lead and tugging her across the lobby towards Chica's attractions. "Alright, I gotta go pick up Ethan," Brianna announced, as they had discussed before. "You two have fun." Paisley waved goodbye as Brianna hurried away towards the exit of the Pizzaplex, checking the time on her phone and then running a little faster than before. Brianna had a complicated schedule where Ethan's grandfather, aka her dad, takes care of him while she's at work with Roxy. Today, Brianna had to pick Ethan up early because her dad had a doctor's appointment. But Brianna wouldn't be needed for this next part, so Roxy had been okay with her leaving in the middle of the day. Paisley was the only manager left of them, and unlike Brianna, her presence was absolutely vital for Phase 2 of Chica and Roxy's date. The moment they stepped into Chica's attractions, the aroma of sauces, spices, and pasta rolled over them. Laid out on the party tables closest to the door, there were several heaping trays of food. With just a quick glance, she recognized lasagna, garlic bread, salad mixed with onions and peppers and baby tomatoes. "Oh my gosh," Chica exclaimed. "What is all this?" Roxy bounded around the display, her tail wagging. "Well, I heard that you were kind of tired of pizza and hot dogs, so I got you some Italian food instead." Chica had actually forgotten that she had complained about that at all. She had mentioned at some point in the last few days that she had never branched out from the food in the Pizzaplex, but apparently Roxy had noted that comment with great seriousness. "I mean, technically pizza is also Italian, but the Pizzaplex kind of Americanized that whole palate," Roxy rambled on, "and since that's the closest thing to what you're used to, I thought the safest option would be Italian." "This is so sweet," Chica cooed, moving around the table where Roxy stood. "Thank you, Annie. Thank you so much." Roxy giggled, then cleared her throat, trying to play it cool. Yeah, I thought it would be nice. You're welcome." Since Paisley was the only one who had eaten things from outside the Pizzaplex before, she showed them how to cut the lasagna and leverage it onto their plates with the spatula that the restaurant provided to them. She recommended to mix the packets of ranch with the garlic bread, showing them how to maneuver their forks around the salad to get enough of each ingredient rather than just a hunk of onion. The three of them settled down at the table with their plates of food, each having differently sized portions. Paisley had a human-sized portion, one that was twice as small as the one that Chica needed. Roxy's was between the size of Chica's and Paisley's, cutting her bites smaller so that it would last longer. Even though she needed food even less than Chica did, Roxy had been joining in on most of Chica's meals just to make her feel more comfortable, to take some of the guilt of wasting food off of her. Roxy obviously didn't have a sense of taste, but all of the animatronics were still built of the ability to eat, in case if a kid wanted them to join in on their birthday party. It didn't really feel the same as when Chica ate, but the others commented that it was pleasant to be able to smell the food in their mouth, even though they couldn't tell the difference between something edible and something like perfume or soap that was just meant to have a nice scent. Chica's eyes were back on her plate. Lasagna was new to her, but the waves of pasta and ground meat and flecks of spring-greened seasoning over layers of melted cheese looked delicious. The same could be said for the golden brown garlic bread, the bits of fresh salad, and the glass of water sitting beside her fork. Still, even though her stomach was sending her signals to eat, she just couldn't begin. What if she did it again? Nerves clenched deep inside of her, paralyzing her. Memories of her most recent failure flooded back, dread marching up her spine into the base of her skull, warning her away from this. Helplessness began to drag at her heels, even as she tried to shake the feeling off. This time yesterday, Chica hadn't been nearly this calm. She had done it again. Only 24 hours ago, she had undone all the progress that they had made. She had eaten too much while no one was watching, and then jabbed her finger down her throat, and she bit down on her tongue, trying to keep herself from crying again as that little voice returned with a vengeance. You aren't actually starving. You don't need it. You're just being a fat pig again. Selfish, greedy little... Chica felt like a fraud when those thoughts came. She was able to encourage Roxy and help her with her insecurities, but when it came to herself... If she couldn't do it to herself, what if she wasn't helping Roxy properly? Hey. Chica snapped her head up. Roxy had reached over the table, hand on her shoulder. "Tell me what's wrong," Roxy said, her eyes tilted with concern. Chica sighed, wanting to lean into her touch. "This is gonna sound bad," she said. "I'm sorry." "No, you can tell me whatever," Roxy said, as if it was nothing. "I'm not here to watch you pretend to be fine." It took a few minutes for Chica to gather herself. Thousands of voices in her head kept telling her to keep her mouth shut, to call this off entirely. She was wasting Roxy's time. She shouldn't have to do this for her. Chica closed her eyes, trying her best to push back on those thoughts, instead using Roxy's warm hand as an anchor. I don't think I deserve this, she eventually said. Why? I don't need it, Chica explained, the shame returning full force. I'm wasting this food. We shouldn't be spending money on me. It's all just a stupid part of my programming. I'm being... Hey, stop right there, Roxy interrupted sternly, shaking her a little. I don't care whether you really need it or not. You deserve to not be in pain. None of us know what it's like to be you. We weren't given the ability to taste and eat. She puffed up her chest, nodding with certainty. If you say that your special feature comes of hunger, you get to eat. And if anyone tries to tell you different, I will personally bite their face off. Got that? Chica laughed, a smile melting over her features. Please don't bite anyone's face off for me, Annie. This company does not need another bite victim. I'll only bite them a little, Roxy muttered. Okay, I get it. Chica gave in, nodding. Roxy let go, leaning back to her side of the table. She chuckled a bit, a distant look in her eyes. It's kind of funny. I'm great at motivating anyone except me. Wait, you feel that way too? Chica gasped, finally finding room to breathe. It makes me feel like such a liar. Yeah, Roxy sighed. If I'm doing something wrong, you'll tell me, right? Chica asked, tilting her head down, struggling to keep her claws away from her arm warmers. Chica, you're already doing perfect, Roxy assured her. I'm tired of feeling ashamed of myself, but I'm even more tired of seeing you being ashamed of yourself. Roxy puffed up her chest, her confidence returning. Come on, let's just do it already. I wear this dumb face, you eat, and we won't let any stupid people tell us what to do. Roxy pried the first slice of lasagna up, the sauce and the cheese dripping from it. I fight your demons and you fight my demons, all right? Chica's grin grew wider, taking her own slice. Roxy touched hers to Chica's, saying, Cheers. They began to eat together. Roxy was right. For a day as special as this, trying out Italian was the best possible move. It was a completely different palate from what she was used to, bringing out new spices and rich cheesy flavors that deviated far from the greasy, saturated fat that she was used to. And sure, eating unhealthy food didn't really matter to her since she couldn't actually digest it or gain weight, but it was really good to finally get something that wasn't just glorified fast food. She chomped down on the garlic bread next, the fluffy dough and crunchy spices encouraging her to keep eating despite the little voice's continuous attempts to drag her back down. Paisley stayed close to her side, trying to watch her without looking too obvious. Chica was carefully monitored as she took each bite, the anxiety of that making her have to stop and take a few swigs of water. They're not judging you, she began to repeat in her head. They're just worried for you. They're making sure that you don't hurt yourself again. Have you heard anything from DJ or Sun and Moon? Roxy's question somewhat jostled her out of her darkening thoughts, and she repositioned to focus on that instead. This was a method that Paisley had told them about. Having conversations during the meal helped to distract from what was going on, and right now Chica needed a distraction more than ever. I've checked on them every once in a while, Chica replied. Sun and Moon seem like they're getting a little better. They're a little less lonely, at least. Has Murray said anything? She angled the next part at Paisley. Or, wait, are we not supposed to ask that? Paisley finished chewing, saying, I can't get into specifics for privacy's sake, but Murray was saying that Sun and Moon are doing a lot better with DJ around. What about Freddie and Bonnie? Is his treatment going well? Chica and Roxy had actually seen a lot of Freddie and Bonnie, though they had never been given a clue of how well Bonnie's separation anxiety problem was being handled. Freddie came to check on them frequently, at least 6 times a day, popping in and asking how they were doing and if they needed anything, if they wanted his help or wanted to do an activity, the majority of the visits leading to them agreeing to play a board game or watch a movie in the theater once the mall closes for the night. But the bags beneath Freddie's eyes were darker every time that Chica saw him, and he was actually getting quite shaky on his feet, like he was constantly in the act of balancing on a tightrope. The few times that they had watched movies, Freddie always ended up falling asleep by the 3rd act, which Bonnie explained was a product of him staying up to help him with his insomnia every night. But every time Chica and Roxy offered to help him out, he would just say that he had it covered and they had enough to worry about already. Chica didn't exactly want to say that the struggle against Bonnie's mental health was sucking the life out of him, but it certainly seemed like the stress was beginning to get to him. Chica always felt bad for him every time that she saw how permanent Freddy's signature look of worry was becoming. She was already stressed out about keeping Roxy stable. She couldn't imagine how much stress she would be under if Roxy was as traumatized as Bonnie was. They're working on it, Paisley said, wearing an uncharacteristic look of uncertainty. Briar is saying that she's doing all that she can to help them out, but the divorce, it's taking up a lot of her attention. Do you think we could help them out? Chica asked, but Roxy sighed, saying, every time we do, he says that he's got it covered and doesn't want us to worry. I know, but maybe if we just asked again? Chica suggested with a weak shrug. I don't want you two to be worrying about that, Paisley said. You're both already fighting your own battles, and I trust Whitson to know when things are going too far. I can talk with him if you want, but it's best if you just focus on your own treatment. Chica was still unsure. Before she could say anything else, Paisley expertly changed the subject. Here, Brianna was telling me something funny just now. You won't believe what Ethan did to her car yesterday. Their interest was piqued. Oh no, Roxy groaned. What did he do this time? He drew all over it with chalk. The conversation continued from there, distracting Chica as she continued to eat. The topic drifted from Ethan's antics to Paisley's nieces to the kids that Chica and Roxy missed playing with, and then debating over the next movie they should try out once the family has enough time to get together again. There were a few more moments where Chica had to pause and take deep breaths while Paisley coached her on resisting the urge to get rid of what she had just eaten, but besides that, the day's previous momentum had returned. The only other sprinkles of unease were Chica's own worries over Roxy and how she felt about her face. Chica had promised to herself to keep track of Roxy just as closely as Roxy was keeping track of her, and even though Roxy appeared relaxed at first glance, Chica could tell that she was still bothered. Her eye kept twitching, her ears flicking every few minutes, her tail curled tightly around her middle. Despite the discomfort, she seemed to be holding up relatively fine so far, and Chica tried not to make it too obvious that she was keeping track of her. Both of them needed a distraction from their troubles, and constantly talking about that at the dinner table would only upset them. They did not want their illnesses to find a way to ruin this special day. It had been about 5 years since they had actually had the time to celebrate today, and they absolutely refused to let anything stop them now. Okay. Roxy gulped down the last few bites of her meal, standing up so fast her knees almost got stuck between the bench and the table. I think I should start working on the surprise now. I thought this was the surprise, Chica said, watching Roxy head off towards the kitchen. Well, I mean, it kind of is. It's half of it, Roxy called, holding both hands out and walking backwards towards the kitchen. Just stay right there and finish up. I made most of it earlier today and just need to finish baking it. Chica shifted to sit back down, curiously watching as her girlfriend disappeared behind the flapping doors of the kitchen and got to work. I'm going to need to think of something really good to top this off next year, Chica mumbled, half to Paisley and half to herself. What do you mean? The last time we celebrated, it was like 5 years ago, but it was me who was planning out the day, Chica explained casually. So Roxy absolutely insisted that we should have this year be her turn to make a surprise for me. Paisley tilted her head, her wine-colored hair slipping over her shoulder and avoiding her lasagna by a mere inch. I thought you two were just going on a normal date today. Did we not mention what day it is? Chica asked, running over their conversation. No? It's our anniversary, Chica chirped, a warm smile flushing onto her face. The anniversary of when we made it official and started dating. Oh, that's nice. Paisley rested her head on her palm, asking, how long have you been together? I think about 10 years now? Chica counted up the last decade. I mean, the last 5 during Jeremy's whole thing, we were kind of finding it hard to see each other with all of his new rules, but it's not like that meant that we broke up or anything. We just weren't able to spend much time together because of all of his restrictions. Anyway, yeah, I think I would count those years, so 10. Paisley twined her last bite of lasagna around her fork, waiting until she swallowed it to ask, I was about to question how you met, but all of you were raised together, right? Yeah, basically. Chica's memories swept back even further. We've known each other since we gained consciousness, but it took a while for us to notice that we both felt the same way about each other. Her cheeks were beginning to hurt from how much she was smiling, and it felt good. It felt really good to have something to talk about that wasn't foul or traumatic or disturbingly personal. How did she tell you? Or did you tell her? Paisley questioned. Again, Chica felt her face heat up, and she found herself poking at the shredded remains of her salad rather than looking Paisley in the eye. Up until the moment, we were really good friends, and well, I kind of had a huge crush on her, but I didn't want to make it awkward. I didn't know if she was into girls too, and I didn't want to lose her if she got all weirded out by a confession, so I was mostly just staying on the sidelines for a few years, trying to figure out if she was just being friendly or if she was also wondering the exact same things about me. But then one night during a show, Roxy and me had a part where the solo switched back between me and her really quick, and she ended up playing a few wrong notes. I'm not sure if the crowd noticed, but all of us had been practicing that song for a while, so we all knew that she messed up. When it was time to go sign autographs at the fans, Roxy didn't want to go. She ran off, and we went looking for her, and I found her crying in her laser tag maze. She tried to run from me at first, but once I got her to slow down, she said that it was okay if I didn't want to be friends with her anymore. I was really caught off guard by that and asked her why she thought that I would want that. She apparently thought that since she embarrassed herself in front of me, I wouldn't think that she was cool anymore. Chica laughed a little at the memory, sitting back and tapping her dull talons on the tablecloth. I told her that I would never do that, and I sort of got caught up in the moment, and I ended up blurting out a confession. I told her that I thought she was really cool and really pretty, and I wouldn't care if she messed up on every song that we played from now on because I was totally in love with her. Once I realized that I actually said that out loud, I got kind of freaked out and thought that she was about to leave, but instead she said something like, "Holy crap, how long have we both had crushes on each other without knowing?" Chica chuckled to herself, rubbing the back of her neck as she said, It was really cheesy, but that's what it took. I don't know how much time we wasted thinking that the other didn't feel the same, but whatever. Too late to go back. Might as well make up for lost time. That's adorable. Paisley laughed lightly. I'm really happy for you two. You have no idea how rare it is for a relationship to last more than 10 years nowadays. Chica snorted, finishing off the last few bites and setting her fork down on her plate. Actually, I do know. Do you have any idea how many kids end up giving me too much information about their parents' messy divorce? Even though she wanted her mind to linger in the story, she found her eyes tracing over the greasy remains of her meal, slowly magnetizing to the remaining packets of leftovers. Hey. Chica snapped her head back towards Paisley, then snatched her claws away from the extra food. Find something to ground yourself. You can feel your feathers, Paisley reminded her. You can brush over them, just don't pick at them, okay? I know. Chica sighed, running her talons through the seashell pink arm warmers. This had been something that they had gone over when Paisley saw that Chica was stress-pulling regularly. Redirecting the fidget into petting her own feathers was grueling, but Chica was determined to do it. Next, she felt the weight of the food in her belly, and she found herself tensing her jaw. Don't deserve it, selfish, disgusting pile of lard. Chica closed her eyes, breathing deeply through her nose, pushing the urges down. She was not going to do it again. She was absolutely determined not to give in. It's okay if you feel this way, Paisley reminded her, patting her elbow, but you're not going to act on it, right? It does not control you. You're not going to let it win, right? I'm not. Chica sighed deeply and opened her eyes again. She searched for something else to think of, and just on time, a new smell began to wind its way through the party rooms, tickling her curiosity. It was warm and bready, some sort of sugary pastry with a light fruity tinge throughout. Roxy was definitely baking something. She stretched her neck up, but couldn't make out anything through the circular windows of the kitchen's doors. There was a bit of clattering and sliding, but Roxy wasn't giving any hints as to what was going on in there. "What do you think she has for you?" Paisley asked. It was a bit iffy to still be talking about food, but Chica knew that she had to associate food with something good, and this was a good chance to get her to think of food as a nice treat instead of an enemy. Chica tentatively sniffed at the air, picking through the familiar smells as well as the more foreign ones. "It's got dough," she said. I don't think it's cake, though." She already ruled out all of the food that was available for children's birthday parties, trying to travel around to foods that she had seen around the mall and restaurants, or the diner. The connection whisked past her like an arrow flying by. She screwed her face up in concentration, trying to dig deeper into her memories of the diner, but that was so long ago she couldn't remember which dessert she was recalling, at least not until the sweetness of the most important ingredient finally made it to her. Chica had a physical reaction, slamming both of her hands down on the table, staring and blinking across the room, being transported decades into the past within the flash of a second. Paisley giggled a little, saying, "You okay?" How does she remember?" Chica asked, as if Paisley was holding back that information. "That was so long ago! Holy cow!" A very familiar timer was set off from within her kitchen, and she listened as Roxy slid the tray out of the oven, set it down, and began waiting for it to cool off. Only when Roxy proudly marched out of the kitchen with the dessert was Chica able to confirm that she wasn't just crazy. It was a pie. They served those for desserts at the old Fresh Start diner, but had dropped that food once she was moved to her part of the pizzaplex. Roxy had her tail held high, a triumphant grin perking up into her dazzling eyes, carefully setting down the pie in front of Chica. The combination of the swirling aroma and the light golden color of the filling sent a wave of nostalgia through her. It was a peach pie. Not only was it her favorite flavor of pie, but peaches were her favorite food, period. Roxy chuckled a little, her ears folding back modestly. "You look like I just presented you with a diamond ring." Chica stood up and latched onto her from across the table. "Oh my gosh! Thank you, Roxy! Thank you, thank you, thank you! This is the best anniversary you've given me yet! I don't know how in the world I'm going to top this next year, but wow!" Roxy set her back down in her seat, gesturing for her to eat. "Here, I don't want to take any parts. It's been forever since you've gotten to eat pie." "Thank you," Chica said, hand on her heart. "I'm serious, Roxy. Thank you so much." "Of course." Beneath the table, Roxy's tail brushed against her leg. "Anything to make you feel a little better, honey." Honey was new. She liked it. Chica took a knife and a fork and cut into the crumbly layers of dough and peach filling. It gave a soft crunch as a slice was pried away from the rest of the pie, the sweet, golden filling flowing over the crust like honey. She used the fork to separate the tip from the rest, lifting it to her beak, hesitating, and then taking a bite. Again, she felt like she was being dragged backwards through time, pieces of the old diner floating just beyond her reach. The amber spotlights, the squeaking sound of the leather booths, the clattering of the kitchen, the weight of her old guitar, Victor hiding behind the velvet red curtains off to the side, giving them an encouraging thumbs up as they began to play their first show. It was all so much more to her than just a pie. Did I do okay?" Roxy asked, bringing her back to the present. I don't know if I cooked it long enough." "No, it's good." Chica sniffled a little, rubbing at her flickering eyes. "It's really good. Thank you." Roxy got up, swinging around the table and plopping down side by side of Chica, her tail wrapping around her waist and making Chica's chest flutter. Take your time, she said to her. Do you want just one slice today? We can save the rest for later. Oh, right. Portion control. Chico watched the rest of the pie, the little conflicting voice in her head trying to weaponize the fruity syrup, the soft dough and crust. Come on, that first bite made you so happy. Just binge the entire thing one more time, for old time's sake. She resisted, bringing back up the feelings that she would get if she went through the cycle again. It was still so fresh in her mind, she was able to swerve and avoid it. No, she said. Just one slice is fine. Do you think you'll be okay? Roxy asked. Chica chuckled. Yes, I think I'll be able to handle it. Sorry, I know, Chica finished for her, giving her a friendly nudge. We can talk about something else instead. That'll help. She took her second bite of the pie, already dividing up the third one with her fork. Do you remember the time when my guitar broke in the middle of a show, back in the Fresh Start Diner? Just like Chica, Roxy seemed to be sucked back into 2066, snorting with a jump to her shoulders. Oh, that was a disaster, she groaned. Victor was just telling the rest of you guys to keep going while he was trying to fix it on stage, but the string just kept on breaking loose, Chica recalled. Luckily the kids thought that it was hilarious, but oh my god, over 20 years later, and that stupid broken string still keeps me up at night. He never canceled the show, Roxy added on, both of them becoming wrapped up in the memories of their first home. Oh, remember that one time the boards broke and Bonnie fell through the stage? She nearly choked on her bite of pie, clearing her throat as Roxy went on. Oh, and remember that stupid microphone that just kept cutting out in the middle of songs? Victor just encouraged Freddie to not worry about it and keep singing anyway when it did that because a flawed show was better than no show. What did he say? He was telling him that if Freddie stopped, then he was going to go up there and start singing for him, and trust me, you do not want that. The nostalgia ached somewhere deep in her chest, the flowing taste of the peaches and baked dough amplifying it like gasoline on a fire. He always said the show must go on, Chica recalled. He always kept telling us that even if something goes wrong and we mess up, if we stay positive, have a good attitude about it, and laugh it off, the audience will still love us. They let those memories filter through the room around them, slightly faded but no less bright. I miss him, Chica said eventually. Roxy hugged her a little tighter, mumbling, I know, I do too. Do you miss the diner? She asked, trying to bring her smile back. Roxy tilted her head, pursing her lips. I don't know. Things were a lot tougher back then, and money was a lot tighter. Stuff kept breaking, and we just had to roll with it. DJ was basically a jukebox. There was a lot of critics about us making light of a tragedy, and working in a place like that was pretty rough, especially when we had customers to feed. But I feel like we were all kind of a lot closer then. I mean, we're still close now, but we don't see a lot of Sun and Moon anymore, and we're always separated into different attractions all day. Do you miss being a pirate? Chica asked. What? Roxy laughed. Back in the diner, you still had the pirate theme, Chica giggled. Do you miss being a pirate? No, Roxy said. No, not really. I hated doing that accent all the time. Anyway, back to your first question. I think the Pizzaplex is pretty great. Now that we moved here, we got more functional bodies, things like facial expressions and the security modes to protect the kids. We got technicians to take care of us, we got some more financial stability, we got better jobs and more fans and, well, a lot more freedom, I guess. Up until Jeremy. Chica agreed. But I don't know. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going with this, but I guess it's okay to miss the past, even if things weren't perfect back then either. By now, Chica had made her way to the crust, the flavors coming to an end. Well, there's one more part of the diner that I don't miss, Roxy said. What? She asked, taking the last bite. I didn't have you. She giggled, then covered her beak so she wouldn't accidentally spit out any crumbs. After swallowing, Chica said, "Well, you had me. You just didn't have me." Exactly. There was a big, beautiful bird standing right there on stage, and the whole time I never had the courage to get a little closer. Both of them leaned into each other, their eyes closing, but they were interrupted by someone clearing their throat. Should I stay here for this part? Both Chica and Roxy jumped, looking down to see Paisley still sitting there. She had almost completely forgotten about her. Paisley was quite good at blending into the background and keeping quiet. Paisley stood up, taking her empty plate towards the trash. "Chica, if you think you'll be able to stay calm, I could let you two have some alone time to, celebrate your anniversary." Both Chica and Roxy exchanged a knowing look, heat rushing up their bodies and collecting behind their faces. "Yeah, I think I'll be okay," Chica said, keeping her eyes locked with Roxy's. "You can go home early if you want." Woo! Honestly, it was kind of a crime that I didn't get to post this on Pride Month, but that just isn't how the schedule laid out, so sorry about that. But anyway, woo! We got another wholesome chapter. We got to have some Roxy and Chica time. So, before you end up leaving, do remember to like and comment about your favorite part and everything, so that you can help push the get the algorithm. So you can get the algorithm to push this to other people. I would really appreciate that. Thank you very much. So, the next episode is going to come out 2 weeks from now, hopefully, as long as nothing goes wrong. I think that's really all that I have to say. Thank you so much for getting this far. My cat is trying to get inside the closet right now. Hello! Her little paw is sticking inside. Hello, baby. Okay, so, I think that's really all I have to say. The number one is just please remember to comment and like your favorite part. The comment doesn't have to be super elaborate or anything. It can literally just be a key smash or a bunch of emojis. It doesn't really matter, just anything to help push, get the algorithm to push this to other people. Second thing is the schedule is hopefully going to be the same. And third thing is thank you so much for getting this far. Thank you for listening to my dumb voice. And goodbye. Love you guys. Woo! Oh my gosh, I just realized this. I just realized that foxes eat chickens in real life. Foxes are always trying to get into chicken pens and eat chickens. Anyway, whatever. Anyway, bye guys. Thank you for watching. Bye. I love you guys. Thank you for your commitment and all of your following me throughout this story and stuff. Thank you. Bye. Roxy came at her from the other side, close enough that Chica was finally able to get a few rocks off. No!